One Piece does a lot through its story. I mean, I'd expect it to because there are like 1,000 chapters, so if it didn't, I'd be pretty disappointed. But anyways, it does like a lot, like a whole lot. Do you guys get that One Piece does a lot? Can I stop saying that word now? Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that One Piece is by far one of the most accomplished mangas in the world, and while many people praise its world building and character building, I think one aspect of it that is underrated is the theme of freedom and the message about freedom it conveys, and how freedom actually plays a part in the ending of the story. Speaking of freedom though, let me tell you why you should subscribe to this channel to gain freedom. It all starts at my birth. Where was I born? America. America is the land of the free, meaning that I am free. And what else is America known for? Racism. And who's racist? A lot of people, but mostly Zoro. And finally, what does subscribing to me give you? Videos from me, an American. Thus, smashing the subscribe button to me is basically like smashing Zoro, which is basically a form of freedom. I downgraded from the last video. Let me tell you the loops I had to go through in my biology class to create, The world of One Piece is ultimately a dystopia. I mean, it's obviously breathtaking for us viewers because we get to see the beauty of the world and the greatest parts of the world, Zoro for President 2024. But to most normal citizens, it's a pretty bad living experience. As we've seen time and time again, the world government is pretty fucking shitty, and pirates can also be pretty shitty. So to most normal citizens, they are pretty much sandwiched between two shitty groups. And obviously, all of this is the fault of the world government. The world government is the epitome of oppression in One Piece. I mean, they literally blew up an entire island for just researching history. Time and time again, it's clear that ultimately the world government acts to only help the top 1%. If you aren't a celestial dragon, you're pretty much fucked. You have to live in constant fear of randomly getting a buster call called on your island, or just getting straight up shot by a celestial dragon for walking 2 degrees north of their desired area for peasants. While I'm joking about it, the world government has genuinely bred a system of oppression that constantly takes away the freedom of citizens. You aren't free to research things, the world government doesn't want you to know because you'll probably get shot, and you aren't free to even ask why the world government doesn't want you to research it because, well, you'll get shot again. Lots of shooting. But I'm used to it, I'm American. But for real, the system of oppression and constant torture of those who dare to question the system all stems from a singular desire of the world government: to erase. I think most people already know that the world government hates whatever the true history of the world is, but the extent they go to is by far one of the most horrifying things we've seen in One Piece. From killing an entire civilization to erase history, to doing it again right now, the world government is horrifying. More than just the ancient kingdom though, the world government also tries to erase people of power from existence. The most prominent example of this being Roger. The world government's desire to completely eradicate Roger's bloodline is what caused this entire hunt for Ace that killed thousands of women and children, all of whom were innocent. Probably. The world government literally only operates for the benefit of celestial dragons and actively tries to erase anything that could harm them. More than just that though, the celestial dragons themselves aren't the greatest of people. They act as if they own the world because, well, in the eyes of the world government, they do. From slavery to acts of racism, it's clear that the celestial dragons aren't, how do I say this, good people? Anyone who isn't a celestial dragon has a chance of being forced into slavery or other cruel acts purely for the joy of a celestial dragon. But you may be asking, wait, it's clear that the world government themselves hurts normal citizens, but how did they play a role in pirates hurting normal citizens? I understand that none of you are asking that, probably, but... What a great question! Thank you so much, astute viewer. Smooth transition into... The only reason people become pirates is due to the lack of freedom presented by the world government. Whether it's purely to have monetary gain or even just for the fun of rampaging, at the end of the day, they do it because they can't have freedom in their normal life under the world government. No matter how rich they may be or how much power they may individually have, at the end of the day, the world government is a risk to them. The desire to be free is what led people out into the seas, and it's what actively allows people to feel free. A perfect example of this is Boing Boing Bellamy. Did I just say Boing Boing? Boing Boing? Really? Okay, back to sounding smart. Bellamy. Bellamy was born and lived an affluent life in North Blue, yet he still set out to the Grand Line due to, well, he wanted more freedom. He found his life boring, so he set out to find freedom in the life of a pirate, which also led him to going on rampages and killing people, and probably a list of other crimes, but at least he was free, am I right? But for real, the oppression under the world government leads to people searching for any outlook to feel free, whether it be committing crimes or committing crimes, which is a surprisingly common occurrence in One Piece. Regardless, I actually think a great example of this sort of oppression leading to drastic acts to attempt to feel free is the Berserk Goat Head arc. Skip ahead like 10 seconds if you haven't watched Berserk, but it's similar to how when there was barely any freedom due to the plague and Mosgus being a dick in general, they did some pretty wild shit in order to feel free. The entire party with friends that we saw with this goat head man who was also partying with friends. What am I doing with my life? Regardless, it was their way of attempting to feel free. Anyways, back to One Piece, where there aren't any orgies. Pirates are just those who set out to sea for freedom. Even though, yes, some may just want to go and get treasure, that's still their way of feeling free. For Luffy, it's about the journey itself. And funnily enough, this all ties back again to the world government, but this time in the form of bounties. The world government places bounties on all pirates who they consider to be worthy enough, which is also actively telling people to hunt them down and stop them. While bounty hunters are a topic in One Piece that hasn't truly been explored since, these two, who were not the best representation to end on, they do exist, and so do Marines who go out of their way to hunt those with big bounties. What I'm trying to say is, by placing bounties on pirates, the world government actively tries to restrict freedom for those who go and search for it. The people who search for freedom are labeled as criminals and hunted down by the world government in an attempt to stop them. The world government takes any chance it can to restrict freedom. And while yes, sometimes bounties are placed because a pirate is a dick in general, as we saw through the Straw Hat, sometimes it's the exact opposite. If a pirate makes it to the New World, they probably have like 100 million berry bounty on them, even without doing anything other than just living their life on the sea. At the end of the day though, there is still a singular reason freedom is as important as it is to the story, and that obviously is Luffy. Luffy isn't searching for a treasure. He's searching for the feeling of freedom through his true love, journeying with his friends. From parties to revolutions, Luffy does it all to feel free. From the occasional revolution to save his friend's country or something honorable like that, he also just does things for the fuck of it. I mean, I should remind you, he decided to charge into the world government's base with no thought just to save his friend. His stupidity, while also funny, works in his favor because you don't need to be smart to feel freedom. Everyone has their own form of freedom, and Luffy achieves it in his own way. You don't need to be able to do trigonometry to feel free. Actually, you don't even need to be able to do trigonometry in general. Fuck you, trigonometry. This panel of Luffy saying it's the freest on the sea who's Pirate King is probably the singular most important panel in the entire show, if his true goal is just to be free. Maybe finding One Piece is his form of freedom. While none of it can be as certain, it is clear that everything Luffy has done so far is to feel freedom. I mean, I'm certain most pirates in the show did what they did to feel freedom to some extent. The pirates of the old age, the pirates of the new age, and even those who were tyrants did it because they wanted to feel freedom. Well, the last one might also just be because they were dickheads, but you get my point. With all this being said though, I believe so far in the story only two men have achieved true freedom, and that is of course Gold D. Roger and Whitebeard. Roger found his freedom through the One Piece. Similar to Luffy, his love for adventure and journey was what drove him to the treasure, making finding it the achievement of freedom. Whitebeard found his freedom with his family. He never needed treasure or to rule anything, he just wanted a family and he got that. Both of these men stand at the top of the pirating world forever, due to not only their power, but also because they achieved freedom. Freedom to live as they like, freedom on the seas. These two men achieved everything there was to achieve in this world, and that is, well, it's the same word I've said 5,000 times in this video. They achieved freedom. And what else do they have in common, you may ask? The world government tried to erase them both. Even though Roger was succumbing to a disease and he was pretty much gonna die, the world government still actively tried to kill him. And I mean, eventually they did. And they also started a manhunt for a literal baby just to end his bloodline. The Marines also started a war just to kill Whitebeard and all of his crew. Basically, they don't like these two men. However, one thing that is also common to both of these two men is that both of their deaths sparked a new pirate age. The world government constantly goes through a cycle of oppressing people, and then those oppressed people become pirates, and they try to get freedom, or they achieve freedom, and then the world government kills them, and finally that leads to more people to try and be like the person who achieved freedom. It's a constant cycle that's continued on for years and years, and currently, the person trying to achieve said freedom is Luffy. And well, from the looks of it, he seems like he's on track to becoming the freest. Freedom is literally the manifestation of Luffy's devil fruit. Nika, the same person who allowed slaves to have freedom thousands and thousands of years ago, has manifested into Luffy, who will lead the world into a new age. An age of freedom. Even Luffy has said Gear 5 is what he looks like when he's fully free. Gear 5 is the epitome of freedom, making Luffy arguably the closest to becoming Pirate King, the freest on the sea. More than that though, similar to Nika who came before Luffy, Luffy will free more than just himself though. I believe by the end of his series, Luffy will free the entire world from the world government. He will break the cycle that breeds pirates and tyrants. He will allow people to have freedom and not have to succumb to the world government. He'll allow the fishmen to come to the surface and live in peace, for the Lunarians to live happily and, oh, they're already all dead. My bad. Although it's clear that at the end of the journey, Luffy's goal is to achieve freedom for the world. After all, if he is to surpass Gold D. Roger, the man who achieved freedom itself, how will he do that other than allowing others to feel what Roger himself felt? Whatever it is, all we know for sure is that the One Piece has to relate to freedom. Overall though, that's it for me. Thank you.